Imagine losing your grandmother, then having your aunt corner you in a parking lot to call you a thief. My sister Deborah is about to find out that patience isn't weakness. It's the time I needed to build a felony case against her. You're watching Real Reddit Revenge, and today we're diving into a story of a sister's greed, a forged signature, and the ultimate legal clapback that rearranged our family tree forever. My name is Alina Vance. I'm 40 years old, and for the last 11 years, I've made my living as a senior paralegal. I've been a single mom since my daughter was 7, grinding away to provide a good life. Over the decade, I've combed through thousands of airtight contracts, messy depositions, and complex court filings. I thought I'd seen every trick in the book, but nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for the level of betrayal my own sister was capable of inflicting on my child. 4 months ago, my mother passed away. In her will, she left everything to my daughter, Maya. The house, the rainy day savings, and a brokerage account totaling $240,000. Courtney, my older sister, didn't get a single red cent. Instead of reflecting on why that might be, Courtney decided she was going to fix the situation herself. She called what she termed a family meeting. She told Maya it was about healing and finding closure after the funeral. But when Maya walked into our late mother's living room that Saturday afternoon, there wasn't a comforting casserole in sight or a box of tissues on the table. Instead, there was a lawyer in a sharp gray vest, a massive stack of legal documents, and 3 grown adults staring down a 21-year-old girl who had shown up alone and grieving. But my sister made one massive, catastrophic mistake. She assumed I wouldn't find out until the ink was dry and the property was transferred. What went down in that living room over the next 40 minutes didn't just cause a rift. It completely dismantled our family from the inside out. And the fireworks started the very second I kicked open the front door. Welcome back to Real Reddit Revenge. This is the place where real family drama hits the fan, the betrayals, the boundary crossing, and the absolute stone-cold strength it takes to protect your own. If you've ever had a relative try to snake money out from under you, drop a comment below and make sure to hit that subscribe button. My mother, Evelyn Vance, lived in a charming little yellow house on Oak Lane in a quiet suburb of Columbus, Ohio. She'd been a dedicated 3rd-grade teacher for over 30 years. She retired at 63 and spent nearly a decade tending to her prize-winning hydrangeas, tearing through mystery novels on her porch swing, and baking her famous lemon bars for basically everyone in a 5-mile radius. She had 2 daughters. Courtney, the oldest, was 45. I was 5 years younger. Growing up, Courtney was always the charmer, the one who could manipulate her way out of a speeding ticket or into a promotion she didn't earn. Our father absolutely worshipped the ground she walked on. She was his golden girl, while I was just his quiet one. When he passed away 16 years ago, Courtney walked away with most of his affection and the lion's share of his attention. I got the leftovers. Mom, however, saw the world through a much clearer lens. She never called Courtney out publicly, but she was observant. She noticed that Courtney only checked in when her bank account was hitting 0. She noticed that I was the one who came over just because she seemed lonely. When Mom's health started to take a dive, it wasn't the golden girl who showed up at 7:00 a.m. with groceries and prescriptions. It was me. Mom always told me that Courtney had the charm, but I had the patience. At the time, I figured it was just mom speak, one of those soft, sugary things parents say to keep the peace and balance the scales. But 4 months after her funeral, sitting in my kitchen with a mountain of bank statements and a letter I was never intended to see, I finally understood the weight of her words. She meant that patience was the armor I'd need to hold the family together when Courtney's charm inevitably tried to burn it to the ground. What I didn't realize yet was exactly how much of that patience I was going to have to burn through. Maya had moved in with my mom 2 years before she passed. At 19, Maya was halfway through a grueling nursing program, surviving on student loans and a part-time gig at a local CVS. As a paralegal in a mid-sized Ohio firm, my salary didn't exactly allow for a massive trust fund, and I was still drowning in my own student debt. Mom had a spare room, and Maya needed a stable environment to study. What started as a convenient living arrangement blossomed into something beautiful. Maya cooked dinner every night. She acted as Mom's personal chauffeur for every oncology appointment. When Mom's hands became too shaky to hold her books, Maya would sit on the edge of her bed and read those mystery novels aloud for hours. On the really bad nights, Maya didn't even sleep in her own room. She stayed in a recliner right next to Mom's bed. In those 2 years, Courtney visited exactly 3 times. Each time she stepped through the front door, she didn't look at our dying mother. She looked at the crown molding and the hardwood floors like she was a real estate appraiser. She never asked how the treatment was going. She asked about the deed. During her second visit, Courtney cornered me in the hallway, whispering, "Has Mom updated her will lately?" I told her I had no idea. She scoffed and said, "Well, someone should really look into that before it's too late." Then she poured herself a massive glass of Mom's expensive wine and vanished before the dinner Maya cooked was even on the table. Maya told me later, while we were folding laundry, that she'd overheard Courtney out in the backyard on a heated phone call with her husband, Travis. They were arguing about the current property value of the neighborhood. Maya said she felt so dirty hearing it that she just shut the window. I told Maya not to let it get to her. I told her to stay focused on her clinicals and on being there for her grandma. I told her the right thing would happen when the time came. I had to believe that. I really did. Mom passed away on a frigid Tuesday in January. It was pancreatic cancer, and it was brutal at the end. The hospice nurse tried to be comforting, saying she went peacefully. But anyone who has watched their mother's breath slowly flicker out like a dying candle knows that peaceful isn't the word for it. The funeral was a small affair, about 40 people in a church built for hundreds. Maya was a rock, standing by my side the entire time. Courtney, true to form, showed up 20 minutes late, sporting oversized designer sunglasses that she refused to take off, even inside the chapel. The reading of the will took place the following Thursday at the office of Mr. Sterling, Mom's longtime estate attorney. The 3 of us sat in a room that smelled like stale coffee and old carpet. Mr. Sterling didn't sugarcoat it. He read the document clearly. The house on Oak Lane, along with all liquid assets totaling $240,000, was bequeathed entirely to Maya Marie Vance. There was one specific line in that will that I will carry to my grave. To my granddaughter, Maya, who was actually here when it mattered. Courtney didn't get the house. She didn't get the savings. She didn't get a single cent. I watched her closely. She didn't scream. She didn't break down. She sat there like a statue, her hands clenched white on her lap, her jaw set so tight I thought her teeth might crack. She glared at Mr. Sterling as if he were reading a fictional story. When he asked if there were any questions, Courtney just said no, stood up, buttoned her expensive coat, and stormed out without acknowledging either of us. Maya whispered, "Is she going to be okay?" I sighed and told her, "Just give her some space." That radio silence lasted exactly 48 hours. Thursday evening, my phone lit up. It was Courtney. "Elena, we need to talk about this," she said. Her voice was flat and rehearsed, like she'd been shouting the lines at a mirror all day. "Talk about what, Courtney?" "The will, it's a total joke. Mom wasn't in her right mind when she signed that. Maya was living there. She clearly manipulated her. This estate should have been split 50-50 between us." I sat on the edge of my bed, exhausted. In the background, I could hear Travis, her husband, coaching her in a low growl, feeding her talking points. "Courtney, this was Mom's choice," I said firmly. She was cleared by her primary care doctor. The attorney verified her mental capacity. The will is ironclad. "I am her firstborn daughter," she shrieked. "You honestly think she'd leave me with nothing?" "I think she left exactly what she intended to leave." I replied and hung up. 2 hours later, Maya called me, sounding absolutely wrecked. "Mom, Aunt Courtney just called me. She told me Grandma was confused and that I need to do the right thing and sign the house over to her." I closed my eyes and pictured Mom's old cedar jewelry box. It was the only thing she'd kept since before I was born. It smelled like memories and Sunday mornings. Inside were her clip-on earrings and the ruby brooch she wore to every church service. That box held everything she valued, and she clearly valued Maya. "Maya, listen to me," I said. "Grandma knew exactly what she was doing. Courtney is hurting, but being hurt doesn't give her the right to rewrite Grandma's legacy." Maya was silent for a beat. Then she said, "This isn't over, is it?" No, I admitted. I know it's not. I sat in the dark for a long time after that. I wasn't scared per se, but I've spent 11 years in the legal field. I know the smell of a brewing lawsuit. I know when someone is building a case to steamroll a younger, weaker target. Monday morning, I walked into the law firm where I've worked for nearly a decade. I went straight to the corner office. Arthur Miller was a senior estate litigator and a man I considered a mentor. He was 55, drank his coffee blacker than coal, and had seen more family feuds over money than a probate judge. I need a massive favor, I told him. He leaned back in his leather chair. Personal or professional, Alina? Both. I laid it all out. The will, Courtney's narcissism, the harassing phone calls, and the psychological warfare she was starting against Maya. Arthur listened, nodding slowly. When I finished, he cleaned his glasses. The will is airtight, Alina. It was drafted by a pro. There's a capacity evaluation on file. 2 witnesses, it stands. She's not going to take this to a courtroom, Arthur, I said. She knows she'll lose. She's going to bully Maya until my daughter breaks and signs a quitclaim deed. Arthur nodded. The classics shame them into submission play. It's common. I want you to represent Maya officially, I said. I want Courtney to realize there is a shark on the other side of this pond. Arthur agreed on the spot. He also suggested something I hadn't even considered, a full audit of Mom's bank accounts for the final 12 months of her life. If there's any sign of financial elder abuse, he warned, it changes the entire script. I signed the retainer that afternoon. Before I left, I called Maya and gave her the golden rule. If anyone, and I mean anyone, asks you to sign a piece of paper, you call me. You don't read it, you don't touch the pen, you don't even look at it. You call me first. She promised she would. 2 weeks later, Arthur called me back into his office. Alina, you're going to want to sit down for this. He slid a manila folder across the desk. It contained 6 pages of bank records, with certain lines highlighted in neon yellow. There were 6 major withdrawals from Mom's savings over the last 8 months. $3,000 here, $2,500 there. One big hit for $5,000. A grand total of $15,000 had vanished, while Mom was either in hospice or too physically weak to even walk to the mailbox. 3 of the withdrawal slips featured a signature that was off. I knew my mother's handwriting like the back of my hand. She had a delicate, slanted cursive. These signatures were stiff. They were too upright, too forced, like someone was pressing down hard with a ballpoint pen, trying to mimic a hand that no longer had the strength to hold one. Arthur pointed to the dates. The last withdrawal was 9 days before she passed. Your mother was on heavy-duty pain management at that point. She could barely hold a cup of water, let alone sign a $5,000 withdrawal slip. I felt the room spin. I wasn't surprised. I had suspected Courtney was dipping into the well for months, but seeing the physical proof of forgery felt like a punch to the gut. Can we nail her for this? I asked. Forgery and financial exploitation of the elderly are felonies in the state of Ohio, Arthur said gravely. But once we file, it's public. It's a nuclear option. There's no coming back from this. I'm not filing anything. Yet, I said, my voice cold. Arthur looked at me over his spectacles. Then what's the plan? What are we waiting for? I'm waiting for her to make a move so loud and so public that she can't ever walk it back. Arthur didn't push. He made certified copies, slid them into a heavy envelope with the audit report and the original will, and handed them to me. I took that envelope home and locked it in my fireproof briefcase, which I hid in the back of my closet. I saved every timestamp, every email, every nasty text. Courtney didn't wait. She started working the phones like she was running a political campaign. She called our Uncle Ted in Pennsylvania, then Aunt Sarah in Kentucky, and then every distant cousin who would listen. Her version of the story was a masterclass in gaslighting. She claimed that Maya, a calculating, 21-year-old, had manipulated a dying woman into changing her will. She claimed I was the bitter, divorced mastermind pulling the strings because I wanted to funnel money through my daughter. She called for the family to stand together and demand a correction to the will. It was a coordinated character assassination. By the end of the second week, my phone stopped ringing. People I'd known my whole life were ghosting me. My cousin Julie finally called. Julie was 38 and usually the most level-headed of the bunch. "Alina, is any of this actually true? Courtney says Maya basically forced Aunt Evelyn to sign that paper." "Julie," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Maya was the only person living there. She did the cleaning, the cooking, and the hospice care. Courtney showed up 3 times in 2 years. Use your head." Julie paused. "I want to believe you, but Courtney sounds genuinely devastated." "Being devastated that you can't steal a house doesn't make you right," I snapped. Then Travis's mother, Brenda, decided to weigh in on Facebook. She posted a long, rambling status about how some people use caregiving as a mask for greed and how God sees what happens in the dark. She didn't name Maya, but in our small town, she didn't have to. That same week, word got out that Travis was back in town. Courtney had been telling everyone he'd left her for good, but apparently, the scent of a $240,000 inheritance was enough to bring him crawling back. Have you ever had your entire family turn on you over money? Because I have. And it taught me that silence isn't peace. It's just the countdown to a localized explosion. Travis showed up at my front door on a Wednesday night at 7:12 p.m. Maya was at the campus library cramming for her finals. He pounded on the door 3 times, hard. I looked through the peephole and saw his beat-up truck idling in the driveway. I didn't open the door. I spoke through the wood. "Can I help you, Travis?" "Open the door, Alina. We need to settle this." "Settle what?" "This inheritance BS. It's gone way too far. Courtney is a wreck." I leaned against the frame. "If you have legal issues with the estate, call Arthur Miller at Miller and Associates. He handles all of Maya's legal affairs." There was a long silence, then a dry, raspy laugh. "Legal affairs. This is family, Alina, not a deposition." It became a legal matter the second Courtney started calling our relatives and telling them my daughter is a thief. I shot back. I heard him shift his weight on the porch. "Courtney is hurting. Your mother left her absolutely nothing. That's cold-blooded." My mother left what she chose to leave. And if you want to talk about cold-blooded, we can discuss the $15,000 that migrated out of her account while she was on her deathbed. Complete silence. I didn't add another word. I didn't have to. Travis walked back to his truck, sat in the driver's seat, and didn't even turn on his lights. He just sat there for 20 minutes, a dark silhouette in the driveway, before finally peeling away. My hands were steady, but my chest felt like it was in a vice. Travis wasn't a dangerous man in the traditional sense, but he was the kind of guy who thought being loud made him right. He was about to learn a very expensive lesson. The following week, Arthur called me in. He had the final forensic report and a certified copy of the will from the probate court. The envelope was thick and heavy, the kind of weight that carries consequences. "Everything is in here," Arthur said. "The capacity evaluation, the bank audit, the withdrawal slips, and a signed letter from the hospice facility confirming your mother was non-responsive during those final withdrawals." I held the envelope with both hands. "What's the next move?" "That's up to you, but I've been doing this for 23 years, Alina. The right moment to use this is usually the moment that feels the scariest. It's the moment when the room is full of people who are convinced you're the villain." "I'm ready for that," I said. "I've been ready since I saw those forged signatures." Arthur nodded. "One more thing. I had the signature analysis finished. The forensic examiner's opinion is that those signatures are a 100% mismatch for Ruth Aubrey. It's enough to trigger a criminal referral for felony forgery." I tucked the envelope into my briefcase and drove home. That night, I locked it away with the other copies. 2 envelopes, 1 truth, 1 plan. Maya came home from campus that Thursday with red-rimmed eyes and a voice that was barely a whisper. "She came to the school, Mom." I dropped my coffee mug. "Who, Courtney?" She was waiting in the parking lot by the nursing wing. She cornered me after my clinical rotation. Maya sat on the couch and tucked her knees to her chest. She was 21, but in that light, she looked like a terrified child. She stood there with her arms crossed, and my friend Kayla was right there. Courtney yelled loud enough for everyone to hear that I was a thief and that I took what belonged to her. I felt my jaw lock. What did you do? I walked away. I didn't say a word, but she kept screaming after me. Maya's voice broke. She said Grandma would be ashamed of me. I sat next to her and pulled her into a hug. She sobbed into my shoulder just like she did when she was 6 and the world felt too big. She's lying, Maya. Grandma loved you. She chose you because you were the only one who actually showed up. You earned every bit of that inheritance by being a daughter to a woman who was being ignored by her own child. Maya wiped her eyes. Kayla asked me what that was all about. I didn't even know how to explain it. You don't have to explain a thing, I promised. Not to Kayla, not to Courtney, and definitely not to the rest of the family. That night, as we sat over a plate of lukewarm leftover pasta, Maya asked me something I wasn't expecting. She pushed her fork around her plate, looked up at me, and asked, "Maybe I should just cave. Maybe I should just give it all to her." I froze, mid-sip of my coffee, and set the glass down slowly. "Everything, Mom," Maya continued, her voice trembling. "The house, the savings, the whole 9 yards, if it makes her stop. If it makes the rest of the family stop looking at me like I'm some kind of professional con artist." She shook her head, tears threatening to spill. "I can't do this. I'm in the middle of my final clinicals. My boards are in 5 weeks. I can't spend my study breaks looking over my shoulder in parking lots wondering if Aunt Courtney is going to jump out from behind a minivan." I didn't snap back. I looked at my daughter and I thought about my mother. I thought about my last visit with her just 3 days before the end. She could barely keep her eyes open, her strength spent, but she found the power to squeeze my hand. She whispered, "Maya is the one who stayed." She said it like a simple fact, as certain as the sunrise. "No," I said firmly. Maya looked up. "You are not signing a single thing. You aren't giving away your future to appease a bully. Grandma left this to you because she wanted you to have it. Not because she forgot Courtney existed, but because she remembered every single thing Courtney did, and she still chose you." Maya went quiet for a long time. "I'm going to fix this," I promised. "But I need you to trust the process. Can you do that?" She nodded. "I trust you." "Good, now eat your dinner." A tiny, flickering smile crossed her face. That was all the fuel I needed. The next morning, Courtney went nuclear. She sent a group text to the entire family at exactly 8:43 a.m. on a Monday. I know the time because I was pouring my first cup of caffeine when my phone started buzzing like an angry hornet. Courtney had looped in everyone. Me, Maya, cousin Julie, Uncle Ted, Aunt Sarah, and even Travis's mother, Brenda. "COURTNEY, family meeting this Saturday at Mom's house. 2:00 p.m. We need to settle this estate business like adults. Everyone is welcome. This is about doing right by Mom's memory." Maya forwarded it to me instantly. "Are you going?" "No," I texted back, "but you are." When she got home, she looked at me like I'd lost my mind. "You're going to walk in there, sit down, and you're going to listen," I told her. "You won't argue, you won't defend yourself, and you are absolutely, under no circumstances, picking up a pen. If they hand you a document, you say one thing, 'I need time to review this with my own counsel.' That's it. That's your only line." "What if they have a lawyer there?" she asked. That question proved Maya wasn't naive. She'd spent years watching me prep for trials at the kitchen table. She knew what an ambush looked like. "If they have a lawyer, you sit and you listen. Then you repeat your line, 'I'll be close by.'" I called Arthur Miller that afternoon. "Saturday, 2:00 p.m., the Oak Lane house. If they try to strong-arm her, I need you on standby." Arthur didn't hesitate. "How close?" "In your car around the corner. I'll text you the signal. You walk in and we end it." I spent the rest of the week in war room mode. I reviewed the certified will, organized the bank audits, and highlighted the forensic handwriting report. Everything went into my professional briefcase, tabbed by category and indexed by date. But then, Thursday evening, Maya called me from Mom's house. She'd been sorting through the bedroom closets, packing away old winter coats and photo albums. Mom, I found something. Her voice was soft, not upset, but incredibly focused. In Grandma's cedar jewelry box, I was looking for her pearl brooch to wear to the meeting on Saturday. I lifted the velvet lining at the bottom. There was a letter underneath. I made the drive to Oak Lane in record time. Maya was sitting on the edge of the bed, the box open. The scent hit me instantly. Cedar, lavender, and that faint, sweet lotion Mom always used. It was the smell of my childhood. The letter was 2 pages of yellow legal pad paper. Blue ink. Narrow, slanted cursive. It was unmistakably my mother's hand. Maya handed it to me. It began. Dear Maya, if you're reading this, it means the will has been read and Courtney is furious. I know this because I know my daughter. I read the rest with my back pressed against the hallway wall. Mom wrote that Courtney had borrowed over $80,000 over the last 15 years and never repaid a dime. She wrote about a week in March, 2 years prior, when she was hospitalized. Someone had drained her savings account using her name. I know who did it, the letter read. I didn't confront her because I didn't have the fight left in me, but I changed my will because love should not be a debt that someone gets to collect on. Show this to your mother. She will know what to do. I folded the letter, tucked it into my briefcase, and looked at Maya. She knew, Maya whispered. Yes, I said. She knew exactly who Courtney was. Friday morning, Arthur and I sat in his office with the letter between us. He read it twice, then tented his fingers. This aligns perfectly with the bank records. Your mother documented the pattern herself. The loans, the theft, the intent. It explains exactly why she disinherited Courtney. I'm not using this in a courtroom, Arthur, I said. He looked up. Then where? In that living room. In front of the family Courtney has been brainwashing. I want them to see the truth. We spent the next 2 hours prepping the final file. Certified will, bank audit, handwriting analysis. The letter, everything was tabbed. Arthur even printed a 1-page summary of exploitation sheet. I called Maya one last time. Walk in at 2:00. Sit in the armchair by the window. Don't let them box you in on the couch. If they hand you a paper, say the line. I'll be there the second you need me. I'm scared, Mom. I know, but you aren't alone, I promise. Saturday morning, I was up at 5 a.m. Maya wore a white blouse and dark slacks, pinning Mom's pearl brooch to her collar. She looked older, more settled, like a woman who was done being a victim. We drove separately. Maya parked at the curb. I parked 2 blocks away behind a hardware store. Arthur was already in position, a silver sedan 1 block north, engine off, eyes on his phone. I watched from a distance as Maya walked up the front steps. She paused at the door, touched her brooch, and stepped inside the lion's den. My dashboard clock hit 1:58 p.m. 2 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Maya, there's a guy here I don't know. Gray vest, briefcase. He's at the dining table. I typed back, do not sign. Listen only, I'm right outside. I texted Arthur. They brought a lawyer. You're up, wait for the signal. Inside that house, 3 adults, Courtney, Travis, and Brenda, were currently hovering over my daughter, trying to trick her into signing away her grandmother's legacy. I sat in the car, gripped the wheel, and breathed. Maya told me later what happened in those first 10 minutes. Courtney was on the couch, legs crossed, looking like she'd spent all morning rehearsing her concerned sister face. Travis was by the window, acting like a bouncer. Brenda was in the recliner with a look of pure judgment. And then there was the guy at the table, Neil Pratt. He wasn't an estate lawyer. He was a general practitioner, a buddy of Travis. Maya, honey, sit down, Courtney had said, her voice dripping with fake honey. We just want to resolve this so the family can heal. Neil Pratt slid a manila envelope across the table. This is a voluntary relinquishment of rights, he said. Standard stuff. Once you sign, the assets transfer to your aunt, and we can all move on from this misunderstanding. Maya didn't touch it. This says I give up the house and the savings, she noted, reading the header. And it says I waive my right to sue later. It's a clean break, Maya, Courtney urged. You're 21. What are you going to do with a house and 200 grand? Let me handle the adult responsibilities. That's what family does. I need to read this with my own attorney, Maya said. Neil shook his head. No need for that. This is just a private family agreement. I said, Maya repeated, her voice gaining strength, I need to talk to my lawyer. The room went icy. Courtney's smile vanished. Travis stepped away from the window, looming over her. And that's when I decided I'd heard enough. I didn't knock. I didn't wait. I turned the knob and walked straight into the living room, setting my briefcase down with a heavy thud. Sorry I'm late, I said, my voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Courtney stood up, her face turning a blotchy red. This is a private meeting, Alina. You weren't invited. My daughter was, and since she's my client, I'm here. I walked over and put a hand on Maya's shoulder. I felt her entire body exhale. Travis stepped forward, trying to be intimidating. Alina, nobody wants a fight. We're doing this the right way. Then you won't mind me being here to make sure it stays right, I replied. Neil Pratt tried to intervene. Ma'am, this is a private discussion. I looked him dead in the eye. A private discussion with a lawyer present, a legal waiver on the table, and no independent counsel for a 21-year-old. That's not a discussion, Neil. That's a predatory legal practice. Or, in layman's terms, a shakedown. I sat on the arm of Maya's chair and crossed my legs. So, who wants to go first? The silence was delicious. I let the old grandfather clock tick for a good 30 seconds before Courtney found her voice. We're doing this for Mom, she cried. Maya is too young for this burden. I'm the eldest. I should be the one managing the estate for the benefit of the family. By family, you mean your own mortgage, right? I asked. You have no right to talk to me like that. And you have no right to this house, I said quietly. Mom made her choice. The court certified it. It's over. Neil tried to save face. The document is entirely voluntary, Ms. Vance. No one is forcing. Mr. Pratt, I interrupted. He flinched. He hadn't introduced himself yet. You're not an estate specialist. You handle DUIs and property line disputes. You weren't retained by Maya, and you're currently witnessing a high-pressure signing under duress. Anything she signs here wouldn't hold up for 5 minutes in front of a judge. The room went still. Neil looked at Travis. Travis looked at Courtney. Suddenly, the front door swung open again. Cousin Julie walked in, looking confused and holding a bottle of wine. What's going on? Courtney, you said we were doing a pot roast and looking at old photos. We are, Julie, Courtney snapped. Just finishing some paperwork. Julie looked at the lawyer, then at the document, then at Maya's pale face. Paperwork? At a family dinner. My sister organized a legal ambush, Julie, I explained. She brought a lawyer to bully Maya into signing away her inheritance while she was alone. Julie's face dropped. She looked at Courtney with pure disgust. You told me Maya was the one being greedy. This looks like the opposite. That was the moment. I pulled out my phone and sent one word to Arthur. Now. 90 seconds later, there was a firm, professional knock on the door. I opened it to find Arthur Miller in his $2,000 charcoal suit, looking every bit the legal reaper he was. He didn't shake hands. He didn't smile. He walked to the dining table and slammed his leather briefcase down right next to Neil Pratt's cheap folder. Arthur Miller, he announced, his voice booming. I represent Maya Vance in all matters regarding the Evelyn Vance estate. Mr. Pratt, I suggest you step away from that table before I start drafting a complaint to the Bar Association. Neil Pratt looked like he was about to faint. Courtney's Golden Girl act was officially dead. I didn't know if Neil Pratt recognized Arthur Miller's name or the prestige of his firm, but he definitely recognized the weight of the man standing in front of him. Are you retained by the beneficiary? Neil stammered, his bravado evaporating. I am, Arthur replied, his voice like rolling thunder. Neil started gathering his papers with shaking hands. The sound of pages sliding together was the only noise in the room. Courtney pointed a trembling finger at Arthur. This is ridiculous. We're trying to handle this as a family. You have no right to be in this house. Arthur ignored her entirely. He leaned over, picked up the voluntary relinquishment document from the coffee table, and read it in dead silence for 30 seconds. Then, he dropped it back onto the table like it was a piece of trash. "This document," Arthur began, "purports to transfer the entire estate to Courtney Kessler without a penny of compensation, and includes a predatory clause waiving the beneficiary's right to even contest the transfer. It was drafted without independent counsel and presented to a 21-year-old under extreme duress." He turned his gaze to Neil. "Who prepared this garbage?" "I did," Neil muttered. "Are you board certified in estate or probate law, Mr. Pratt?" Silence. "This document has zero legal standing," Arthur declared, "and I am officially advising my client not to review, sign, or even acknowledge its existence." Neil slammed his folder shut and looked at Travis. Travis, usually the loudest guy in the room, was suddenly very interested in the pattern of the floor rug. "I think we're done here," Neil whispered. He looked at Travis one last time. "I told you this wasn't the way to play it." He didn't wait for a response. He bolted out the front door, and his sedan was screeching down the street 30 seconds later. The balance of power hadn't just shifted, it had been demolished. Courtney was still standing, but she looked small. She sat back down on the couch, pressing her fingers to her temples. "This isn't even about the money," she said, her voice thin and cracking. "This is about what's right. Mom would never leave me with nothing. She loved me." "She did love you," I said, stepping forward. "That was never the question, Courtney." "Then why?" Courtney looked at me, her expensive mascara starting to smudge. "Why would she do this to me? Why would she cut me out?" I didn't answer immediately. I let the question hang in the air like a fog. I wanted everyone in that room to hear the desperation beneath her voice, because desperation is different from entitlement. You can work with a desperate person. You can't work with someone who thinks they're owed the world just for existing. Brenda, the mother-in-law, tried to jump back in. "Courtney gave everything for this family. She planned every Christmas. She organized the reunions. She was the glue." "Planning a party isn't the same thing as being a daughter, Brenda," I said coldly. Courtney stood back up and walked to the window. Travis's truck was gone. Neil was gone. She was standing in the house she tried to steal, and she was losing her audience. "You've all decided I'm the villain," she choked out. "Fine, but I was her daughter too. I deserved something." I looked at my sister. I looked at the woman who had called my daughter a thief, who had humiliated her at her university, and who had forged our mother's name while she was literally fatting away. "You're about to find out exactly what you deserve," I said. I reached down and clicked open my briefcase. The sound was like a gunshot in the quiet room. I pulled out a manila envelope, the heavy one with the yellow tabs and the certified forensic stamp. I set it on the coffee table, right next to the trash document her lawyer had left behind. 6 withdrawals, I said, sliding out the first page. Bank statements from Mom's savings over an 8-month period. I fanned them out on the table like a winning poker hand. Julie leaned in, her eyes widening. 3,000 in April, 2,000 in June, 5,000 in August, 2,000 in September, 1,500 in October and November. A grand total of $15,000, Courtney, all withdrawn while Mom was either in hospice or too weak to lift a spoon. I pulled out the next page. 3 of these slips have a signature. They're supposed to be Mom's. Courtney didn't move. She looked like she'd been turned to stone. "I sent these to a forensic document examiner," I continued, my voice steady and professional. I didn't need to look at the notes. I had these numbers burned into my brain. "The examiner's report is clear. The signatures are a total mismatch. The strokes are too heavy, too upright. Mom's hand was failing. These were written by someone with plenty of strength and plenty of greed." Julie picked up one of the statements, holding it close to her face. When she set it down, the look of pity she'd had for Courtney was replaced by pure, unadulterated disgust. I reached into the briefcase one last time for the final blow. This was the part I dreaded, not because of the law, but because it was my mother's voice. And once these words were in the air, there was no taking them back. I held up the yellow legal pages. Mom wrote this letter and hid it in her jewelry box. Maya found it 2 days ago. I didn't read the whole thing. I just read the parts that ended the war. Courtney has borrowed $80,000 from me over 15 years. She never repaid a single cent. When I was in the hospital last March, someone took money from my account. I know who. I didn't confront her because I didn't have the strength for that fight. But love should not be a debt someone collects on. The room was airless. Julie had her hand over her mouth. Brenda was staring at the floor, suddenly very quiet. She was confused, Courtney shrieked, her voice raw. She was sick. She didn't know what she was writing. She knew exactly what she was writing, Courtney, I said. She listed the exact amounts. She listed the dates. This wasn't confusion. This was a mother who ran out of time before she ran out of patience. Arthur Miller stepped forward then. He'd been the silent observer, but now he closed the trap. The will is valid. No family meeting changes that. As for the $15,000, forgery is a felony in Ohio. We haven't filed a criminal referral yet. Whether we do depends entirely on how you spend the next 5 minutes. Brenda tried to stand up. You can't threaten her. She's grieving. Arthur didn't even blink. He kept his eyes on Courtney. You were never entitled to what you didn't earn. That sentence landed like a bomb. Courtney snapped. She slammed her palm onto the coffee table, sending the bank statements flying. You have no right. She was my mother. She was mine too, I said, and she made her choice. Courtney turned on me, her face a mask of rage. You planned this. You let Maya walk in here alone just so you could humiliate me. I let Maya walk in here because you invited her here to bully her, I countered. I just evened the playing field. Then Courtney did something I didn't expect. Her rage didn't just vanish, it collapsed. She didn't sit on the couch. She sank onto the floor, right there by the coffee table, as if her legs had turned to jelly. Travis left me, she whispered. The words were small, stripped of all the Golden Girl performance. He moved out in February. He took his name off the mortgage. I've been trying to cover the payments on one income and I'm 3 months behind. The bank sent a foreclosure notice last week. She put her face in her hands. I needed that money, Alina. I have nothing. I'm 45 years old and I have absolutely nothing. The room fell into a heavy, awkward silence. Maya watched her with her hands clasped. Even Brenda looked stunned. For a fleeting second, I saw my sister, not the forger, not the bully, but just a scared, broke woman. And then I remembered the signatures. I remembered the $80,000. I remembered Maya shaking on my couch, terrified to go to school. You could have asked, I said softly. You could have picked up the phone and told me you were drowning. You could have been honest with Maya. Instead, you forged Mom's name while she was dying. You called my daughter a thief in public. You tried to scam a 21-year-old out of her future. I let a beat pass. That was your choice, Courtney, not mine. Julie was the first to move. She'd been standing there for 20 minutes, a witness to the whole car crash. She looked at Courtney on the floor, then at me. I came here because Courtney told me Maya was being a greedy brat. She told me Maya manipulated Aunt Evelyn. Julie shook her head, looking at the bank statements. I see now who the greedy one was. You didn't know, I said. Now you do. Brenda stood up, grabbed her purse, and walked out the front door without saying a word. The screen door clapped shut. Travis was gone. Neil was gone. Now Brenda. Courtney was left alone on the floor of the house she tried to steal. I put my hand on Maya's shoulder. Let's go home. Maya paused at the door. She looked back at Courtney, and for a second I thought she might offer an olive branch. But she didn't. She just touched the pearl brooch on her collar and walked out into the fresh air. Some things don't need words. 3 weeks later, the dust settled. The house on Oak Lane was officially Maya's. The savings were moved into her name. Arthur Miller sent one final, formal letter to Courtney. It stated that we were aware of the $15,000 theft and that if the funds weren't returned in 30 days, we'd be heading straight to the district attorney. Courtney returned the money in 10 days. No phone call, no apology note, just a cold wire transfer. Maya moved into the house in April. She didn't sell it. She kept Mom's furniture, but she repainted the guest room a soft, calming blue. She turned Mom's old bedroom into a reading nook, new shelves, warm lighting, and a comfortable chair by the window. She placed the cedar jewelry box on the top shelf. Right next to it is a framed photo of Mom at the kitchen table, mid-laugh, with flour on her apron. The box that used to hold brooches now holds a different kind of treasure, a letter that proved the truth. Maya and I have dinner every Sunday at the Oak Lane house. Julie comes over sometimes, too. We don't talk about Courtney. I told my sister through Arthur that if she wants a relationship with Maya, it has to be based on honesty. No lawyers, no pressure, no lies. She hasn't called yet. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. I can't control her, but I can control who gets access to my daughter. One Sunday in late April, Julie was over for dinner. She asked Maya about the meeting. Maya just smiled. The look on Courtney's face when Mom walked in with that briefcase. She thought she was the smartest person in the room until the real professional showed up. Julie laughed. Your mom is a savage. She is, Maya said, and I'm glad she's on my side. I was in the kitchen, hands in warm, soapy water, listening to them laugh in the other room. I looked out at the lemon tree Mom had planted. It was finally starting to bud. Here, what I learned. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to play dirty to win. Sometimes all it takes is the right documents, the right timing, and the backbone to stand between your child and anyone who tries to take what they've earned. Patience isn't weakness. Preparation isn't revenge. And protecting your family is something you never, ever have to apologize for. That's my story. One family meeting, one briefcase, and one letter that changed everything. If you've ever had to protect your peace from a golden child, relative, share this video, drop a comment with your story, and hit that subscribe button. I'm Real Reddit Revenge, and I'll see you in the next one. Amen.